Black twins shine at science fair judging panel left speechless by their invention. The judge's pen hovered above the evaluation form, his knuckles white with tension. He glanced at his colleagues, their faces mirroring his own disbelief. Before them stood Zora and Zadie Johnson, twin sisters with matching braided hairstyles and determined eyes that never wavered under scrutiny. Between them sat their invention, a device so unexpectedly brilliant that it had rendered the entire judging panel speechless. "Could you please explain again how you developed this?" asked Dr. Whitman, the head judge, his voice strained with barely concealed skepticism. The twins exchanged a quick glance, a silent communication perfected over their 15 years of existence. It was the same look they had shared countless times before when faced with adults who underestimated them. Zora stepped forward, her voice steady despite the electricity of tension in the air. "The concept began with our grandfather's dialysis treatments. We wanted to create something that could detect early kidney dysfunction using non-invasive methods accessible to underserved communities." Zadie continued seamlessly. "The problem wasn't creating a new test. It was making existing technology affordable and accessible to people who typically get overlooked by medical innovation." The silence that followed felt like judgment itself, that familiar weight the girls had carried throughout their academic lives. The question hung in the air, unspoken but palpable. How could these two black girls from East Oakland have created something that seasoned biomedical researchers had yet to perfect? And in that moment of scrutiny, a fundamental question emerged that would drive everything that followed. In a world where brilliance is too often filtered through the lens of prejudice, would genuine innovation be recognized for what it truly was, regardless of who created it? The twins stood tall, unaware that this science fair would become much more than a competition. It would become a test of character, not just for them, but for everyone involved. 6 months earlier, the Johnson family kitchen buzzed with morning activity. Sunlight streamed through windows framed by curtains their mother had sewn herself, illuminating the organized chaos of a household preparing for the day. Their father, Marcus Johnson, a high school physics teacher, stood at the stove flipping pancakes while reviewing lesson plans. "Girls, don't forget I'm picking up Grandpa Leon from his appointment today," he called out over the sizzle of the griddle. "We'll be home late." Eliza Johnson moved efficiently through the kitchen, a hospital administrator who approached home life with the same organized precision she brought to her work. "I've left casserole instructions on the counter. Zora, Zadie, you two are in charge of dinner." The twins sat at the kitchen island, already deep in conversation about their advanced placement chemistry homework. At 15, they were identical in appearance, both with warm brown skin, bright eyes, and athletic builds, but those who knew them recognized their distinct personalities immediately. Zora, older by 7 minutes, was methodical and measured, approaching problems with careful analysis. "The science fair registration deadline is next week," she said, sliding her tablet toward her sister. "Ms. Abernathy says it could be a major scholarship opportunity." Zadie, more spontaneous and intuitive, was already 3 steps ahead in her thinking. "What if we do something with medical diagnostics, after seeing Grandpa go through dialysis every week?" Her voice trailed off as she sketched a rough diagram on her notepad. Their 10-year-old brother Eli darted into the kitchen, his school backpack half-zipped. "Are you guys doing the science fair? Can I help? I've been reading about robotics and—" "Slow down, Einstein," Marcus laughed, ruffling his son's hair. "Let your sisters figure out their project first." Eliza placed glasses of orange juice in front of her children. "How is Grandpa doing with the new treatment schedule?" she asked Marcus, her voice lowered slightly. "He's putting on a brave face, but 3 times a week is taking a toll," Marcus replied. "And the transportation issues aren't helping. Yesterday, he waited 2 hours for the medical transport service." The twins exchanged meaningful glances. Their grandfather Leon, once a civil engineer who had worked on major infrastructure projects across California, had been diagnosed with kidney failure the previous year. The brilliant man who had once taught them to build model bridges now spent hours tethered to dialysis machines. "Did you know that kidney disease affects Black Americans at nearly 4 times the rate of white Americans?" Zadie said suddenly. "But diagnostic tools are typically tested on and designed for majority populations." Zora nodded, her mind already connecting dots. And early detection could prevent so many people from needing dialysis in the first place. "Girls, that sounds like an ambitious project," their father cautioned. "I love the passion, but remember you need something you can actually demonstrate for the fair." Eliza studied her daughters thoughtfully. Your grandfather would be proud to inspire your project, whatever you decide. Later that morning, as they walked to Oak Ridge STEM Academy, the twins continued developing their idea. Their high school was one of the newer institutions in Oakland, established specifically to nurture talent in science and technology from diverse communities. Though still underfunded compared to schools in wealthier districts, it provided opportunities that their parents had fought hard to secure for them. "We need to talk to Ms. Abernathy," Zora said as they approached the modern but modest campus. "She might have connections at the university research lab." Zadie nodded, already sketching more detailed drawings in her notebook as they walked. "I was thinking about using specialized light sensors combined with ladies, just the dynamic duo I was hoping to see," called a warm voice. Ms. Abernathy strode toward them, her colorful dress and natural hairstyle making her stand out among the teachers. As the science department chair and their chemistry teacher, she had become a mentor to both girls. "Please tell me you're entering the Regional Science Innovation Fair. I've been bragging about my star students to the other schools." "We're definitely entering," Zora confirmed, "but we could use some guidance on resources." Ms. Abernathy's smile widened. "Come by the lab during lunch. I might have some news that could help." The morning classes passed in a blur of anticipation. When lunch period finally arrived, the twins made their way to the science lab instead of the cafeteria. They found Ms. Abernathy arranging equipment for her afternoon classes. "There are my future Nobel Prize winners," she greeted them. "So tell me about this project." For the next 15 minutes, the twins took turns explaining their concept for an early-stage kidney dysfunction detection device that would be portable, affordable, and accessible. Ms. Abernathy listened intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions that helped the girls refine their thinking. When they finished, she sat back with an expression of impressed consideration. "This is exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need more of in medical science," she said. "Now, about those resources, the university has a new community outreach program. They're providing mentorship and limited lab access to promising high school students." She slid a brochure across the table. "The application deadline is tomorrow. I've already recommended you both." Zora examined the brochure. "This would give us access to equipment we couldn't possibly get otherwise." "There's something else you should know," Ms. Abernathy added, her tone becoming more serious. "The Regional Science Innovation Fair has changed this year. The prizes are bigger, including full college scholarships, but so is the competition. Schools from all over Northern California will be participating, including private academies with major resources." "You mean like Westridge Prep?" Zadie asked, naming a prestigious private school known for its lavish funding and connections. Ms. Abernathy nodded. "Among others, I don't say this to discourage you, but to prepare you. Your idea has real merit and potential impact. Just be ready for the challenges ahead." As they left the science lab, the twins walked in thoughtful silence before Zadie spoke. "She was trying to warn us about more than just the competition, wasn't she?" Zora nodded slowly. "The playing field has never been level. But that doesn't mean we can't win." That evening, the twins sat with their grandfather in the family living room. Leon Johnson sat in his favorite armchair, looking thinner than he had just months before, but his eyes still sparkled with the same intelligence and warmth that had guided the twins throughout their lives. "So you're going to build a machine that would have caught my bad kidneys before they went haywire?" he asked, chuckling softly. "I'm honored to be your inspiration, but don't you think you should start with something simpler for a science fair? Maybe a volcano or a solar system model?" Zadie grinned. "Grandpa, we haven't made volcanoes since 4th grade. We want to create something that matters," Zora added more seriously. "Something that could help people like you get diagnosed earlier." Leon's expression softened. "You know, when I was your age, I wanted to be a doctor. My science teacher told me I should focus on something more attainable for someone from my background." He shook his head at the memory. "Ended up becoming an engineer instead, which I loved, but I never forgot how it felt to have someone else place limits on my dreams." He leaned forward, wincing slightly from the movement. "Don't you ever let anyone tell you what you can or can't achieve. This world needs your minds, your perspectives. If anyone can build this thing, it's you too." The twins shared another of their silent communications, a look that acknowledged both the inspiration and the weight of their grandfather's words. "We'll need to interview you about your early symptoms," Zadie said, already pulling out her notebook. "And maybe come with you to a dialysis appointment, if that's okay?" Leon laughed. "Nothing would make those long hours more interesting than having my brilliant granddaughters interrogate me and all my kidney friends." As the Johnson house settled into evening routines, the twins retreated to their shared bedroom to begin planning in earnest. The walls were covered with academic awards, scientific posters, and photos of their family and friends. A bookshelf overflowed with well-worn science books, many inherited from their father's teaching collection. Zora created a detailed project timeline on their whiteboard while Zadie researched existing diagnostic technologies on her laptop. "Listen to this," Zadie said. "Current early detection methods for kidney dysfunction are either expensive blood tests or imprecise urine tests that often miss problems until significant damage has occurred. There's a huge gap, especially in communities without good healthcare access." Zora added another item to their research list. "We need to understand why kidney disease hits Black communities harder. Is it purely socioeconomic, or are there biological factors too?" "Both," Zadie replied, still scanning research papers. "Genetic factors, higher rates of diabetes and hypertension, plus less access to preventive care and healthy food options." They worked late into the night, refining their concept, identifying challenges, and listing the expertise they would need to seek out. When they finally turned off their lights, their minds still raced with possibilities. "Zora," Zadie whispered in the darkness. "Yeah. Do you think we can really pull this off? Create something that could actually help people like Grandpa?" There was a pause before Zora answered. "I don't know, but I think we have to try." The university research lab was nothing like their high school facilities. Gleaming equipment lined the walls, and graduate students moved purposefully among sophisticated instruments that the twins had only read about in scientific journals. "And you must be the Johnson twins," said Dr. Harlow, a biochemist who had agreed to mentor them through the university's outreach program. She was a tall woman with short gray hair and bright blue eyes that assessed them quickly. "Ms. Abernathy speaks very highly of you both. Thank you for this opportunity," Zora said, trying not to appear overwhelmed by the lab environment. "We've brought our project proposal and initial research," Zadie added, offering a folder of neatly organized materials. Dr. Harlow accepted the folder but didn't open it immediately. "Before we discuss your project, I want to be clear about something. I agreed to this mentorship because Ms. Abernathy convinced me you have exceptional potential, not because of any diversity initiative or quota. My time is valuable, and I expect excellence regardless of your background. Are we understood?" The twins straightened simultaneously. "Absolutely," they said in unison. Dr. Harlow's expression remained neutral as she finally opened their folder and began reading. The twins waited anxiously, watching her eyes move across their carefully prepared documents. After several minutes, she looked up, her face unreadable. "Your concept has merit," she said finally. "Ambitious, perhaps overly so for your experience level, but addressing a genuine need." She tapped their materials thoughtfully. "However, there are significant technical challenges you haven't fully addressed yet." For the next hour, Dr. Harlow questioned them intensely about their project, probing for weaknesses in their research and challenging their assumptions. The twins responded thoughtfully, sometimes defending their ideas and other times acknowledging the gaps in their knowledge. "You'll need to develop a prototype sensor that can detect specific biomarkers," Dr. Harlow explained, sketching a diagram on a whiteboard. "That will require expertise in both biochemistry and engineering. We were hoping to use spectroscopic analysis techniques," Zadie suggested, "but adapted for portability and lower cost." Dr. Harlow raised an eyebrow slightly. "An interesting approach. The university has been developing miniaturized spectroscopy tools for field research." She hesitated before adding, "I could potentially provide limited access to some of that technology, provided you demonstrate sufficient understanding of the underlying principles." By the end of the meeting, the twins had a clearer understanding of both the possibilities and the obstacles ahead of them. Dr. Harlow had agreed to meet with them weekly and provided a list of additional research materials they would need to master. As they left the university campus, the twins were quiet, processing the interaction. "She didn't think we could do it at first," Zadie said finally. "Did you see her face when we started explaining our spectroscopy adaptations?" Zora nodded. "But she came around. We just have to keep proving ourselves." "Every single time," Zadie sighed. "Always having to prove we belong in these spaces." "Then that's what we'll do," Zora replied firmly. "Again and again until they run out of tests for us to pass." The next 2 months became a blur of school, research, and development. The twins established a punishing schedule school during the day, helping with family responsibilities in the early evening, then working on their project until late at night. Weekends were spent either at the university lab with Dr. Harlow or at the dialysis center, interviewing patients and observing treatments. Their bedroom transformed into a makeshift research center, with papers covering every surface and prototype components organized in labeled containers. Their parents watched with a mixture of pride and concern as the twins poured themselves into the project. You know, it wouldn't be the end of the world if you took a break occasionally, their father suggested one Saturday morning, finding them already working at 7 a.m. Maybe hang out with friends, remember those? Zadie barely looked up from the circuit board she was soldering. No time. The regional fair is in 3 months, and we still need to perfect the sensor calibration. Marcus exchanged a worried look with Eliza, who had just entered with a tray of breakfast for the girls. We're proud of your dedication, Eliza said, but your father's right, balance is important too. We'll rest after the fair, Zora promised, accepting a plate of food without taking her eyes off her laptop screen. This is too important. Their brother Eli poked his head into the room. Can I help? I've been reading about the microcontrollers you're using. Zadie's expression softened. Actually, we could use a fresh perspective on our user interface design. It needs to be simple enough for anyone to use. Eli's face lit up as he joined them, eager to contribute to his sister's project. The family dynamic shifted as the science fair approached. Marcus began arranging substitute teachers so he could assist with technical aspects of the project. Eliza used her hospital connections to arrange meetings with nephrology specialists who could provide insights. Even Grandpa Leon contributed, despite his declining health, by organizing a focus group of his dialysis peers to test the prototype's usability. It became more than just the twins' project. It evolved into a family mission, connecting them to their community in unexpected ways. The dialysis patients they interviewed shared stories that went beyond medical details, speaking of lives disrupted and dreams deferred by a disease that could have been managed if caught earlier. You know what the hardest part is? One woman told them during an interview. Not the treatment itself, but knowing that if someone had recognized the signs sooner, I might still be teaching kindergarten instead of planning my life around these machines. These stories fueled the twins' determination, but also added pressure. Each week with Dr. Harlow revealed new technical challenges that threatened their timeline. The sensitivity is still not where it needs to be, Dr. Harlow pointed out during one particularly frustrating session. And without that, the whole concept falls apart. We can reconfigure the optical pathway, Zora suggested, sketching quickly on her notepad. If we add a secondary filter here and modify the algorithm to account for the additional data points, Zadie finished, already typing equations into their simulation program. Dr. Harlow watched them work with growing respect. Over the weeks, her initially skeptical demeanor had gradually shifted. You two might actually pull this off, she admitted, but you're running out of time. Time wasn't their only constraint. The materials and components they needed strained the modest budget they had cobbled together from family savings and small grants Ms. Abernathy had helped them secure. Each prototype iteration depleted their resources further. Then came the setback they hadn't anticipated. During a routine dialysis appointment, Grandpa Leon suffered a complication that required hospitalization. The family spent anxious days at his bedside, the science project temporarily forgotten. You should get back to work, Leon told the twins on the third day, his voice weaker but his eyes still bright with determination. Don't let this old man derail your breakthrough. The project doesn't matter right now, Zora insisted, holding his hand gently to avoid disturbing the IV. Of course it matters, Leon countered. It matters more than ever. I've seen what you're building. It could help people avoid ending up like me. He squeezed her hand with surprising strength. Promise me you won't give up. The twins returned to their work with renewed purpose but diminished time and resources. They made difficult compromises, simplifying some aspects of their design while focusing their remaining resources on the core detection technology. 2 weeks before the Regional Science Innovation Fair, they faced their final major obstacle. The miniaturized spectrometer they had been using from the university lab was suddenly unavailable, needed for a graduate research project with priority access. This is a disaster, Zadie said, pacing their bedroom. We can't complete the final calibration without it. Zora sat quietly, reviewing their project documentation. Maybe we don't need it, she said finally. What if we use a different approach entirely for the last phase? Like what? We've exhausted every alternative. Not every alternative, Zora said, pulling out her earliest notebook. Remember that paper we read about using smartphone cameras with modified lenses as low-cost spectrometers? We dismissed it because the resolution seemed too low. Zadie stopped pacing. But if we combine it with our advanced algorithm and the filters we developed for the other prototype. They looked at each other, a spark of renewed hope passing between them. It could work, they said simultaneously. The final days before the fair became a frantic race to implement their new approach. They barely slept, testing and refining their device while completing the required documentation and preparing their presentation. Their family rallied around them, with their parents taking on extra household responsibilities and Eli serving as their dedicated test subject for the user interface. The night before the fair, the twins finally achieved a working prototype that met their essential criteria: portable, affordable, and capable of detecting early biomarkers of kidney dysfunction with reasonable accuracy. It wasn't as precise as medical-grade equipment, but it could serve as an early warning system in communities with limited healthcare access. "It's ready," Zora said, her voice revealing both exhaustion and pride as they packaged their invention carefully for transport. "Not perfect, but ready," Zadie agreed, double-checking their presentation materials. Their father appeared in the doorway. "Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you both to know how proud we are, not just of what you've built, but of why you built it." The Regional Science Innovation Fair was held at the San Francisco Convention Center, a venue far grander than either of the twins had anticipated. Hundreds of projects filled the massive exhibition hall, representing schools from throughout Northern California. The contrast in resources was immediately apparent. While the twins had arrived in their father's aging sedan with their carefully packaged prototype, other students unloaded professional display materials and sophisticated equipment from private shuttles. As they set up their modest display booth, they couldn't help noticing the elaborate presentations being constructed nearby. A team from Westridge Prep was installing a project on artificial intelligence with multiple interactive screens and professional quality graphics. "Focus on our work, not theirs," Zora reminded her sister, seeing Zadie's confidence waver. "Our project solves a real problem for real people." The judging was scheduled to occur in waves throughout the day, with different panels evaluating projects in various categories. The twins' entry had been classified under biomedical innovation, placing them in one of the most competitive divisions. While waiting for their evaluation, they walked the floor to see other projects. The range of innovation was impressive, from environmental solutions to advanced robotics. They stopped at several booths, genuinely interested in their peers' work despite the competitive environment. "Johnson twins," a voice interrupted their exploration. They turned to find a tall boy in a Westridge Prep blazer. "I heard you guys were entering this year. I'm Blake Harrison." "Nice to meet you," Zora replied politely, though something in his tone put her on alert. "I'm curious about your project," Blake continued. "Kidney diagnostics, right? That's an interesting choice for a high school level competition, pretty complex medical territory." "We've done our research," Zadie said simply. Blake smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I'm sure you have. It's just that my father, Dr. Harrison at UC Medical Center, says even their research team struggles with early detection biomarkers. But hey, maybe you figured out something they missed." He gave a small shrug before walking away. "Good luck with the judges." The twins exchanged glances. "Was he trying to psych us out?" Zadie asked. "Probably," Zora replied, "but it doesn't matter. We know what our device can and can't do." When their judging time finally arrived, they stood nervously beside their display as the panel approached. 5 judges, all with impressive scientific credentials according to their badges, gathered around their booth. Dr. Whitman, a distinguished-looking man with silver hair and piercing eyes, appeared to be leading the group. "Good afternoon," he greeted them formally. "Please proceed with your presentation." The twins launched into their carefully rehearsed explanation, taking turns to describe the problem they were addressing, the technology they had developed, and the potential impact of their innovation. They demonstrated the device, explaining how it used modified smartphone technology combined with their custom sensors and algorithm to detect subtle changes in biomarkers present in a simple urine sample. The judges listened impassively, occasionally making notes but revealing nothing in their expressions. When the presentation concluded, Dr. Whitman began the questioning. "Your concept addresses an important healthcare disparity," he acknowledged. "But I'm concerned about the accuracy claims. Have you conducted sufficient validation testing?" Zora explained their testing methodology, including the comparisons they had made with standard laboratory results using anonymized patient samples from their mother's hospital, with proper permissions and protocols. Another judge, a woman with a biotechnology background, asked about their sensor technology. "This appears to be an adaptation of existing methods rather than a true innovation. What makes your approach novel?" Zadie walked her through the specific modifications they had made to overcome the limitations of low-cost sensors, highlighting their unique algorithm that compensated for the reduced sensitivity of affordable components. The questions continued, becoming increasingly technical and skeptical. The twins answered each one thoroughly, supporting their claims with data and acknowledging the limitations of their approach when appropriate. Finally, Dr. Whitman asked the question that revealed the underlying doubt. "This is remarkably sophisticated work for high school students. Who helped you develop this concept and build this prototype?" The implication was clear, and it struck at the heart of what the twins had faced throughout their academic lives, the assumption that their achievements must be attributed to someone else. Zora felt a flash of anger but kept her voice steady. "We developed this concept based on our grandfather's experience with kidney disease and our research into healthcare disparities. We received mentorship from Dr. Harlow at the university, who can verify our work, and technical advice from our father, who is a physics teacher. But the core innovation, the algorithm and sensor adaptation, those are entirely our own work." Dr. Whitman's pen hovered above his evaluation form, his knuckles white with tension. He glanced at his colleagues, their faces mirroring his own disbelief. "Could you please explain again how you developed this?" he asked, his voice strained with barely concealed skepticism. The twins exchanged that quick glance, their silent communication perfected over 15 years of facing such moments together. Zora stepped forward, her voice steady despite the electricity of tension in the air. "The concept began with our grandfather's dialysis treatments. We wanted to create something that could detect early kidney dysfunction using non-invasive methods accessible to underserved communities." Zadie continued seamlessly. "The problem wasn't creating a new test. It was making existing technology affordable and accessible to people who typically get overlooked by medical innovation." The silence that followed felt like judgment itself. The question hung in the air, unspoken but palpable. How could these two black girls from East Oakland have created something this sophisticated? Dr. Whitman cleared his throat. "I think we have what we need. Thank you for your presentation." As the judges moved to the next booth, the twins stood still, uncertain of what had just transpired. "They didn't believe us," Zadie whispered. "No," Zora agreed. "They didn't." The rest of the afternoon passed in a haze of nervous anticipation. The twins tried to distract themselves by exploring other projects and engaging with fellow competitors, but the interaction with the judges had left them shaken. Their parents and brother arrived to offer support, and even Grandpa Leon had insisted on coming, despite his weakened condition. He sat in a wheelchair near their booth, proudly explaining their project to anyone who would listen. "These are my granddaughters," he told passers-by. "Remember their names, they're going to change medicine." As the judging concluded and the participants gathered for the awards ceremony, the twins tried to manage their expectations. "Whatever happens, we built something that works," Zora reminded her sister. "Something that could help people like Grandpa," Zadie nodded. "That's what matters." The ceremony began with awards in smaller categories, honorable mentions, and specialized recognitions. When the major categories were announced, starting with environmental science and moving through technology and engineering, the twins held hands tightly. "And now, for the biomedical innovation category," announced the master of ceremonies. This year's competition was exceptionally strong, with groundbreaking projects from many talented young scientists. The twins held their breath. "The third-place award goes to Blake Harrison from Westridge Prep for his work on neural network analysis of diagnostic imaging." Blake walked confidently to the stage, accepting his bronze medal with a practiced smile. "The second-place award goes to Zora and Zadie Johnson from Oak Ridge STEM Academy for their early detection device for kidney dysfunction." The twins blinked in surprise. Second place was a significant achievement, especially given their concerns after the judging. They made their way to the stage, accepting their silver medals with gracious smiles. "And the first-place award, which includes a full scholarship to the University of California, goes to Madison Chen from Hillview Academy for her breakthrough in targeted drug delivery systems." As they returned to their family with their silver medals, emotions were mixed. Pride in their achievement competed with a nagging sense that their project had been undervalued. "Second place is amazing," their mother assured them, hugging them both. "Out of all these projects, your work stood on its merit," their father added. "That's what matters." Grandpa Leon simply held their hands, his eyes shining with unmistakable pride. As participants began packing up their projects, Dr. Whitman approached the twins' booth, He seemed uncomfortable, avoiding direct eye contact as he spoke. "I wanted to congratulate you personally," he said. "Your project showed remarkable ingenuity." "Thank you," Zora replied neutrally. Dr. Whitman hesitated before continuing. "I should mention that there was significant discussion among the judges about your project. Some felt it deserved the top award." "Why didn't it receive it then?" Zadie asked directly. The question hung in the air awkwardly before Dr. Whitman responded. "Concerns were raised about the verification of your work. The winning project had more extensive laboratory validation. Validation that requires equipment our school doesn't have access to," Zora pointed out. Dr. Whitman had the grace to look somewhat ashamed. "Yes, well, that's a valid point." He handed them a business card. "I'm actually on the advisory board for a medical technology incubator. Your concept has real potential for development. I'd be interested in discussing it further if you're willing." After he left, the twins looked at the card skeptically. "Now he's interested," Zadie said with a hint of bitterness. "Of course he is," came a voice behind them. They turned to find Dr. Harlow, who had come to see the results of the competition. "Your project just received external validation through the award. Suddenly he can see its merit." "We got second place," Zora said. "Not first." Dr. Harlow raised an eyebrow. "And you think that was based entirely on the technical merits?" The twins didn't answer, but their expressions showed they understood perfectly. "Listen to me," Dr. Harlow said, her usual clinical demeanor softening slightly. "You two created is remarkable, not just for high school students, but for anyone. I've worked with graduate students who couldn't have executed this project as well as you did." She gestured toward Dr. Whitman, who was now speaking with Madison Chen and her parents. "People like him live in a world where certain achievements are expected from certain people. When someone disrupts that pattern, it's easier to question the achievement than to question their own assumptions." "So what do we do?" Zadie asked. "You keep going," Dr. Harlow said simply. "Your device works. It could help people. Don't let anyone's limitations define what you can accomplish." As they packed up their project, a woman approached their booth hesitantly. She was middle-aged, with warm brown skin and tired eyes that suggested personal struggle. "Excuse me," she said. "I overheard some of your presentation earlier. This device, it can detect kidney problems early, before symptoms get bad." "That's the goal," Zora confirmed. "It's still a prototype, but yes." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "My sister died last year from kidney failure. By the time they caught it, it was too late for anything but dialysis, and then—" She shook her head, unable to continue for a moment. "She was always too busy taking care of everyone else to get checked out. If something like this had been available in our neighborhood clinic." Twins were speechless, the reality of their work's potential impact suddenly personified before them. "When will this be available?" the woman asked. "There are so many people in my community who could benefit." Zadie looked at Zora, then at their family, and finally at Dr. Harlow, who had remained nearby. In that moment, something shifted in their perspective. The competition, the judges' biases, even the second-place finish, all of it receded against the simple truth that their invention could save lives. "We're not sure yet," Zora answered honestly, "but we're going to make sure it gets to the people who need it." The evening after the fair, the Johnson family gathered in their living room to celebrate the twins' achievement. Despite the lingering sense that they had faced unfair judgment, there was genuine pride in what they had accomplished. "A toast," Marcus said, raising his glass of sparkling cider. "To my brilliant daughters who saw a problem and created a solution instead of waiting for someone else to fix it. To determination and excellence," Eliza added, "and to second place that should have been first." Grandpa Leon, looking more energized than he had in weeks, raised his glass as well. "To changing the world one invention at a time." As the family celebration continued, Zora's phone buzzed with a notification. She checked it and gasped, showing the screen to her sister. "What is it?" Their mother asked, noticing their shocked expressions. "It's an email from the National Health Innovation Challenge," Zora explained. "Someone from today's fair nominated our project, and they want us to submit it to their competition next month." "That's a much bigger platform," their father said, impressed. "Participants come from all over the country." "Not just that," Zadie added, still reading the email. "The winners get development funding and mentorship from major medical technology companies." As the implications sank in, Grandpa Leon smiled knowingly. "Sometimes not winning is the best thing that can happen to you. It forces you to keep going, to prove yourself again and again until no one can deny your brilliance." The twins looked at each other, their silent communication conveying a complex mixture of determination, hope, and understanding. They had entered the science fair hoping to win a scholarship and recognition. They were leaving it with something far more valuable, a clearer purpose and a broader vision for their invention. "So," Zadie said finally, "should we enter?" Zora smiled, her decision already made. "We're just getting started." In the days that followed, news of their project spread beyond the competition. A local newspaper ran a feature on the twins and their invention, highlighting both the innovation and the personal story that inspired it. Online science education platforms requested interviews about their development process. Dr. Whitman made good on his offer to connect them with the medical technology incubator, though the twins approached these discussions with careful discernment, determined to maintain control of their invention's development and intended purpose. Dr. Harlow offered them continued access to university resources and introduced them to colleagues in biomedical engineering who could help refine their prototype. "Your work deserves support," she told them, "and the scientific community needs more minds like yours." As they prepared their submission for the National Health Innovation Challenge, the twins expanded their vision. Their device wasn't just about kidney disease anymore. It represented an approach to medical technology that prioritized accessibility alongside accuracy, that considered the needs of underserved communities from conception rather than as an afterthought. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we'd won first place," Zadie mused one evening as they worked on refining their prototype. "We would have gotten the scholarship," Zora replied, "but maybe we wouldn't be here now thinking bigger." Zadie nodded thoughtfully. "Grandpa was right. Not winning pushed us forward instead of letting us think we'd already arrived." Grandpa Leon, who had been granted a brief reprieve from his health struggles, became their most enthusiastic advocate, proudly sharing their story with everyone he encountered at the dialysis center. "My granddaughters are going to make sure fewer people end up spending their days hooked to these machines," he would tell fellow patients. "Remember their names, Zora and Zadie Johnson." One morning, as the twins prepared for school, they found their parents and brother gathered around the kitchen table, looking at something on their father's laptop. "What's going on?" Zora asked. Their father turned the screen toward them. It displayed a social media post that had gone viral overnight, a heartfelt message from the woman they had met at the science fair, sharing their story and the potential impact of their invention on communities like hers. The post had thousands of shares and comments from people sharing similar experiences with kidney disease and limited healthcare access. "Your work is resonating with people," their mother said softly. "This is bigger than a competition now." Zadie read some of the comments aloud. "My uncle might still be alive if this had existed. When will this be available in community clinics? These young scientists are addressing a real need that the medical establishment has overlooked." The twins felt the weight of expectation and possibility settling on their shoulders, not as a burden, but as a clarifying force that brought their purpose into sharper focus. "We have a lot more work to do," Zora said, meeting her sister's gaze. Zadie nodded, their silent communication conveying everything that didn't need to be spoken aloud. "Then we'd better get started." As they walked to school that morning, their path forward seemed both daunting and clear. The science fair had been just the beginning, a first step into a world that might question their abilities and underestimate their potential, but could not deny the value of their innovation or the determination that drove them. They would face more skepticism, more closed doors, more assumptions about what two young black women from Oakland could achieve. But they would also find allies, mentors, and supporters who recognized their brilliance and shared their vision for more equitable healthcare technology. Most importantly, they had each other, twins whose connection transcended words, whose complementary strengths created something greater than either could accomplish alone, and whose shared purpose had been forged in the love for their grandfather and strengthened by every obstacle they overcame together. "Ready?" Zora asked as they approached the school gates. "Always," Zadie replied with a confident smile. And together, they stepped forward into the future they were determined to create, not just for themselves, but for all those who would benefit from their refusal to be limited by others' expectations. If you found meaning in this story, please consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that challenge assumptions and celebrate the brilliance that exists in every community. Leave a comment below sharing your thoughts on what obstacles you've overcome in your own life.